It's an old story, but I think it's one to bring back and highlight for those who may have missed it. It's 1 in 6 species are at risk of extinction in Great Britain, says wildlife experts. Let's read more into this, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from The Guardian with the headline that 1 in 6 species are at risk of extinction in Great Britain, says wildlife experts. The State of Nature report paints bleak picture of wildlife in the UK, but says conservation methods are yielding results. As I said, this is about a week or more so old, but I do think it's one to remind ourselves. Wildlife, it's so important to our planet. I'm trying to find the right ways to convolute, but they play an important part of the planet itself, and to lose any of species damaged by the power of human nature is cruel in itself. We have cost a lot of species there. We have extinct a lot of species by our actions as humans, and it's so important that we protect them as much as possible, just as much here in the UK as we try to do around the world, guys. So State and Nature report paints a bleak picture of the wildlife in the UK, but says conservation methods are yielding results. So 1 in 6 species are at risk of being lost in Great Britain, according to a comprehensive analysis by leading wildlife scientists. Bird species such as turtle doves had the most worrying result in the report, with 43% at risk of extinction. But much other loved creatures such as the hazel dormouse or the lady skipper orchid and the European eel also face an uncertain future. The report argues that this is largely a result of human activities such as causing habitat loss, accelerating diseases such as avian flu via factory farming, and burning fossil fuels, which has altered the climate. The State of Nature report published on Wednesday features work from 60 research and convention organisations based on data from monitoring schemes and biological recording centres to provide a benchmark for the status of UK wildlife. Previous editions were published in 2013, 2016 and 2019. On Thursday, environment groups including the Wildlife Trust, Greenpeace, Butterfly Conventions and Plant Life will be protesting outside the government's Department for Environment through the Rural Affairs, calling for greater protections of this natural world. Since 1970, the abundance of species studied in the report has declined on an average by 19%, and nature continues to be in freefall. Amphibious and reptiles are also at risk, with 31% facing an uncertain future, and 28% of fungi and lichen species are also under threat. 26% of terrestrial mammals in Great Britain are also facing extinction. There have also been declines in the distribution of more than half, 54%, of flowering plant species. So this Guardian graphic, this is from the State of Nature 2023. It has a note here of only 17% of insect species have been assessed, 10% of coryzians of less than 1% of fungi. So I just want to put that in there. So it's more than 40% of bird species in the Great Britain are assessed and threatened in the IUCN Red List there. So it shows there that birds are the highest at risk, amphibious and reptiles up to 30%, fungi less than 30%, and it's just slowly dripping down there. Terrestrial mammals, freshwater fish, vascular plants, bryophases, spiders, insects, lichens, molluscs, crustaceans, and marsupials and centipedes at the lowest end there. But obviously, it would be interesting to see in the comparison if this is increasing as a result of human activity. But it is worrying it is a worrying trend to say the least. We have to protect wildlife as much as we possibly can. The report found the intensive way in which we manage our farm for farming and the continuing efforts of climate change are the two biggest drivers of nature loss. For maritime creatures, climate change and the unsustainable fishery are the largest factors. For farmers who are trying to use organic methods to reduce pests on their crops, the results of interbreds are worrying. Insect species that provide pest controls, such as two-spot ladybirds, have declined by 34%, showing a sharper decline than insect species in general, which have reduced by 18%. The report also found that only a fifth of farmlands is a nature-friendly farming scheme, and just 44% of woodlands is certified as substantially managed. Bleakley Spike, the RSPB chief executive, said the UK's wildlife is better studied than any other country in the world, and what the data tells us is should us make us sit up and listen. What is clear is that the progress to protect our species and habitat has not been sufficient, and yet we urgently need to restore nature to tackle the climate crisis and build resilience. We know that conversation works in how to restore ecosystems and save species. We need to move far faster than society towards nature-friendly land and sea use, otherwise UK's nature and wild environment will continue to decline and degrade, with huge implications on our own way of life. It's only through working together that we can help nature recover. So this is also another graphic from the State of Nature report, the State of Nature Partnership here from 2023. So this is the abundance of 753 species that studied that have declined by 19% on average, guys. So index from 1970 here. So it shows there from 1970 up to in between. It looks like in between there's an uncertainty interval, but you can see that it has slowly declined. The blue line represents UK's abundance indicator for 753 terrestrial and freshwater species. So you can see there has been it's been a decline, and obviously we need to do something to stop that decline and loss of species here, in particular in the UK for us. The habitats that creatures rely on also degrading in quality. Out of the assessed areas for wildlife, only 1 in 7, 17% were found to be in good condition, and only 1 in 14, 7% woodlands, and a quarter of petlands were assessed to be in good ecological state. None of the seafloor was found to be in good condition due to habitat damages from fishing gear. There is a small amount of good news in the report which shows that wildlife conservation methods have yielded results. In the Lane Bay Marine Protected Area, for example, the number of species increased markedly since trawling was banned in 2008. That's good. It's good to have some positivity. The RSPB's Hope Farm also demonstrates that food production can function alongside measures to benefit wildlife, as breeding bird populations increased by 177% over a 12-year period. Now a good positive there, guys. Dr. Francesca Mancinini, an ecological modeller from the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. My apologies if not mispronounced them. I do try, guys. One of the report co-authors said, while the report shows that there are declines in many wildlife populations, it is possible to reserve biodiversity losses through habitat restoration, substantial agricultural practices, and mitigating climate change, for example. Our findings will inform future conservation actions to support species. Meanwhile, improvements in water qualities in many of our rivers and lakes over the past 30 years has enabled recovery of some freshwater species. Tony Jumper, chair of the Natural England, said today's report shines a spotlight on the continued decline of many of our native species, a trend symptomatic of the overall health of nature and the wider environment in this country. If we are to get on track towards meeting our national target to become nature positive, we're going to need a big step up in the way we treat and value nature. He added there were grounds for optimism, citing the nature recovery networks and species recovery program as steps forward, while conceding the truth is though is that on its own will not be enough, with every sector of society needing to play a role if we are to recover species abundance and reduce the risk of extinction, as the government has legally committed to doing so. It states here that the article was amended on September 28th. An earlier version incorrectly implied that turtle doves were not birds. I just wanted to put that in there, the context there. So what do we guys make of this? So it's more specifically on British wildlife rather than the world, but obviously it is a cause for concern. There are obviously some positives, and I will want to stress as well that there are lots of organisations, campaigns, and people out there doing wonderful work to continue and ensure that the British wildlife is looked after and maintained as best it possibly can. Also, another thing as well is that I say to those if you have gardens to obviously to try to encourage wildlife in those gardens if you can as well. Anything that gives them a place of home and of comfort is also good, because it also means it increases their chances of breeding, which obviously we want to do, such as things like hedgehogs, for example, which are lovely creatures, guys. But obviously, if we've seen some of the graphs, there are declines as well in lots of other species, which is a cause for concern. And there are many factors, climate being one of them, but also the loss of wildlife being taken away as a means to build, such as more homes or more commercial buildings. There needs to be a balance for that. Of course, we need to make sure that we are continuing to protect our wildlife, and of course, we need to address the climate issues as well. But it is interesting to say the least, I will say. So some positive, few positives, but obviously cause for concerns on species in the United Kingdom, guys. So let me know what you guys think of this. 1 in 6 species at risk, guys. Should we be more concerned? Are we doing enough? Do we need to do more? What could we as an individual do to make a difference? Let me know you guys your thoughts down in the comment section below. Like, share and subscribe as always. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.